Hello, and welcome to another episode of A Pathetic Podcast. And as always, I'm joined by my illustrious guest, Christian.
What the fuck's up, YouTube?
Make sure to follow at Scented Gladbag on Twitter.com. And before he fucking says, and then unfollow it, no, don't unfollow it. Follow it once and then never undo it.
I was actually not going to say unfollow because I'm actually a big fan of Scented Gladbag on Twitter.com.
Oh, God, fucking, of course you weren't going to do it this time because I made fun of it.
I mean, I'm just saying, I'm a major Scented Gladbag stan. That's why I'm going to make my tribute Twitter unscented Gladbag.
I want to know if people got onto the fact that I was doing my best you impression, because I've heard it so many times that it's not bad, but I've listened to our podcast so many times and I've heard you do it in person. It's just like, hello and welcome to another episode of A Pathetic Podcast. And as always, I'm joined by my guest. I just do not.
Let me see how much it matches up. Hello
and welcome. Well, fuck. All right, hold on.
Hello and welcome to another episode of A Pathetic Podcast.
And as always, I'm joined.
No, it's good. You do a good me impression. Well, I think it's because we're around each other so fucking honestly. So
I think. Well, I guess as you might notice, it's back to us two today, which is a bit of a throwback because we've been hitting the metalcore long t-shirt plant Twitter podcast really hard lately, but now it's back to how it was. And some might say, let's go back to the beginning. Kind of like when Hillary Duff looked out that rainy window and said, let's go back to the beginning, back to where let that rain fall down.
Hey, if Hillary Duff wants to copyright this episode of the podcast, she can. I'm okay with giving her the non-existent funds that are coming in for it.
Do you remember when there was like a controversial record in the 70s or something? They would have like a burning of it or like a book burning for a bad book. Listen, if you copy strike me, Hillary Duff, I am having a DVD burning of the Lizzie McGuire DVD set, and I swear to fuck I'll do it. Oh, you know what? Your sister gets looped in too. I'll burn all the Napoleon Dynamites I got, and I knew that.
Yo, I fucking forgot that her sister did stuff. I forgot that was a thing.
God, do you remember that song they did together? God, oh my God, fuck.
I don't remember it.
God, dude, it was such a...
I know what you're talking about. I definitely don't remember the song.
It was a Bopsterino. Call my boptologist. Prescribe me that song, please.
Dude, there was just like a peak era of like perfect Disney-ness that was just like, it was so good. Everything came out that was just fucking awesome. Like all the original movies were sick. The fucking shows were dope. All the music was awesome.
Dude, so I think you remember Johnny Tsunami? Dude,
yes,
so Johnny Tsunami, it kind of fucked me up for life because it made me realize how many Johnny rhymes you can do. So now, like, a lot of times if I'm just being like an Italian mob character, we got Johnny Chobani. You know, I guess he's half Greek. Yeah. Johnny Chobani, huh? And then you have it was Johnny Salami.
It's classic.
God, there was. Oh, and there was if anyone asked you to do something, you can say, fuck, I look like Johnny so-and-so. Like, one time I was eating a piece of sushi, my wife handed me a second one. I said, fuck, I look like Johnny Two Sushis, huh?
Yeah, you're real funny.
I think I am, and that's all that fucking matters, is that I think I'm funny.
Yep, you are. But, yeah, no guests this week. We had a lot of fun, actually, with all of our most recent guests. We've been doing a lot of goofs and gaffs and fun stuff with our metalcore buddies, and that's been fun. We really love Bob and Garrett and everybody that's been coming out, so...
I tell them ahead of time too. I say, if you don't mind, I'm gonna leverage our friendship for metalcore clout, and I'm very sorry to the Defiler vocalist for going after Defiler clout.
Yeah, this is a public apology to the vocalist of Defiler.
Oh, dude! Speaking of metalcore apologies, there was an Attila song that came out. And this is like
I definitely remember what you're talking about. Absolutely.
I literally I played this constantly again. Franz he is obviously a metalcore millionaire, so he's a genius, but I think he knows that he's got a bit of a cringe factor that makes him money. But he had this like tweet that came out in 2016 or 2017 that was like, I've got a big apology to make tomorrow. Please stay tuned. And then they dropped the song, and he was like, I want to let everyone know that I'm sorry. Sorry that you're a little bitch. It's just like...
That's gold. Honestly, that's fucking gold.
There's one that he was like, I say fuck, I say shit. If you don't like it, you can suck this dick. And then he goes, you motherfuckers get offended by anything, so go ahead and get offended by this. Dun, 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 dun.
Dude, that's why they're fucking geniuses, though, man. Shit like that is so good. Like, this is perfect.
I mean,
it's so good.
they got stream revenue for me for sure because I just kept playing that song to being stupid. I was like, I say fuck, I say shit.
Dude, honestly though, their songwriting is solid. Like, that's one thing that you can't say. As much as like there's the cringe factor of it, and like obviously they do like all the metalcore tropes or whatever.
Yeah, but
dude, they're solid. They're solid songwriting.
The music itself and the mixes, like Bob said, like the music by itself. If I could just buy an instrumental track of it, I would. But
yeah, because it's very dope.
You motherfuckers get offended by any. Oh, sorry, Aunt Libby.
Yeah, so I have a great aunt who lived with me for a long time, and she's like, me and her are really, really close. And Libby, if you're watching, shout out, love you.
Go shut the fuck up.
But she yeah, she called me and she was like, you need to tell Patrick to stop saying that F word every other word. And I was like, you know what, you're right, I'm gonna scold him properly, so Patrick, stop cursing.
I can't. Literally.
It's like a tick. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, you know, we don't have a guest this week and we're just chatting between the two of us, but the one thing that I wanted to talk about is Chapter 2 came out this past week, and I went and saw it on Thursday night, and it was good. Like, I enjoyed it. I mean, you know, I'm kind of you know, we talked on here a little bit about how much of a lot of it about how much of a Star Wars dork I am. I kind of lean that way also with Stephen King. Like,
you're a Stephen King stan, because I remember when you were talking about it at like the warehouse, you'd be like, dude, it was nothing like the book. And I'd be like, it's a
yeah, about the 1990 version. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
But I mean, here's the thing. So like with Stephen King, for me, it comes from my dad. My dad was like really big into Stephen King, and well, my dad got me into like the first like macabre stuff that I enjoyed, which was Stephen King and Edgar Allan Poe, when I was like, and which was perfect because we were teenagers during the time of the massive emo era. So liking Edgar Allan Poe was just like that was perfect. But
have you guys heard The Raven? Have you guys listened to or read The Raven?
Honestly, I just quote Annabelle Lee to myself in my fucking bedroom every day.
The fucking, oh my god, The Raven. That's like the only thing people know. Like, you haven't even read The Raven.
But dude, you know what's actually super dope that I just revisited, and we'll come back to it. I have to go on this tangent because I just re-listened to it recently. Have you ever heard of the Alan Parsons Project or Alan Parsons?
I've heard the name, but I have no idea what it is.
Like music from the 70s. Alan Parsons actually produced some of the Pink Floyd records. Like, I think he produced Dark Side of the Moon.
Okay.
But his group, the Alan Parsons Project, my dad listened to it all the time. I think it's actually their first record. I may be misspeaking, but the record that we always listen to is called Tales of Mystery and Imagination, and it's a concept record that's like it's Edgar Allan Poe stories, and so like the music is like the words and stuff are like basically straight out of Edgar Allan Poe poems and stories. And I revisited it like just the other day, like re-listened to it. Dude, it's so fucking good. Like, it is amazing because like it's one of those records where like you can tell so much thought went into it, because like the songwriting is very like, it's just like it flows really well. Because like, so this is one thing I'll say. Some things that I notice sometime in records is like when the whole record, it's not very copacetic songwriting wise. Like, they'll have one song that's kind of sounds one way, and then another song that kind of sounds a different way and stuff.
That's how records used to work, man. ITunes singles.
Yeah. But yeah, this record, it's like it's almost written like a symphony in a weird way, and there's actually like symphonic parts, and like there's like big orchestral pieces and stuff inside of it, but it's like a 70 what you would expect out of like a 70s rock. Like, it's got synth and like, you know, like weird Pink Floyd style like sounding vocals and shit like that. But dude, it's so I couldn't recommend it enough. You have to listen to it because it's fucking amazing.
I'm down because there's a lot of things that, like, you know, you're kind of an exception to this, but I remember like coming up in music and being inspired by all these artists. I would listen to like a lot of old music and just be like, I'm not talking about '90s music, that's different, but like older music, and I would just be like, oh, this is old, I don't like it, and then I'll just randomly pop it on as a grown up, and I'll be like, dude, this is good.
Yeah, I appreciate it so much more. And like I said, I legitimately grew up listening to that record all the time. Like it was one of the things that my dad played constantly, and I don't think I I had a proper appreciation for it when I was a kid. But re-listening to it now, it is fantastic.
Dude, you should literally, because of your musical background, especially with your dad, you should be like a virtuoso. Like you should be in Polyphia because you had so much like insanely cool music background, and like it's funny because I feel like you should be able at this point to sit down and play classical piano.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing with me with music is it like up here, I'm solid. Like I know music theory for the most part, and like I can think of a song and like I can know what I want to come out of it, but then my stubby ass fingers just won't do it.
Yeah,
I think the part of it is I never conditioned myself properly on anything. Like the only instrument that I ever actually properly learned to play and actually like knew what I was doing was saxophone. Because like the thing with instruments, and if you want to learn an instrument, here's the big fucking secret to it, is you have to practice so much that you just get used to, like, it's not even like a second thought whenever you play it. Like, so with guitar, like I never like properly practiced. I would sit down and I would write like, basic shit. Like if you listen to any of the music that I've ever written, it's very basic. It's because I never properly practiced. But I mean, like I can hear stuff in my head that I want to come out, and I just can't fucking play it because I'm not a good enough player.
Well, I've had so many instruments that I've played either through school or just that I wanted to play on my own, and all of the ones that were like I was forced to be like, now learn your sheet music and now practice for 15 minutes every Wednesday. Every time I would fucking hate it and I would just stop playing it.
No, it's the worst. It's so frustrating. That was a big thing for me growing up too. Is like, my parents were the ones that kind of influenced me to do band, like school band. And like the thing that I always thought in my mind, especially my teenage mind, was like, this isn't music to me, because music should be about like feeling and like it should be passionate. I always thought like music should be like a passionate thing, but like I think that's why I gravitated towards like the type of music that we played, like the heavier stuff, and then
it's mostly self-taught musicians.
Yeah, and that's like I always equated that to being like real music and being like, like what I would consider something that I would rather spend my time with than like, especially in marching band, because like marching band in Texas is like
it's like a religion.
It's seriously like a cult. It's so like
it's because without football being a cult, though, I don't think it would be.
Well, that's the thing, though, is like it's even more of a cult than football is, honestly. Like whenever we do marching band. So how marching band works in high school is you go like a month or two before school starts, and you start doing like practice. I mean, like same with anything. You start doing practice before school starts, and then while you're in school, you also have a period.
Sometimes
like
double blocked, and Martin was double blocked, dude.
Well, what it really was is that how they would do it for marching is that marching band would be your first period of the day. So you'd actually come earlier and practice like before school started, and then the first period of the day would be marching band. So you would continue the practice. So you basically be doing like 2 hours of band at the beginning of the day.
God, that fucking sucks.
And then at the end of the day, you would go back to do more practice after school. And that doesn't include all the stuff that you do in the summer. Like you start like working on a marching show, you start in the summer and you start doing like all the really basic stuff. And then when you hit it real hard is whenever the school year starts, so that you can actually like run through the stuff. Like basically band camp, that's what they call it. Band camp is spent learning the parts, like being able to learn how to memorize your parts, because you have to remember it, and then learning your steps and everything, and then whenever school starts, you're running through the show mostly. But like we'd go out there And for a band camp, you start in the morning, you end in the evening. Like, it's an all day thing every day. And football would also practice at the same time.
Yes.
Football would be out there for 3 hours, and then they would go home, and we would be doing band for probably like at least 8 hours a day.
Did y'all do okay, so it was very similar at my high school. It was, because I had a lot of friends that were in band too, and I didn't do it because I was like, I'm going to skateboard and be in a punk band. But like, they would be out there like all summer, and it would be so hot. They'd be in the parking lot rehearsing the march, and they would literally, like, you would see everyone would just be shirtless, like holding a tube and stuff because it was so fucking hot. And then they would have it double blocked at school usually, and then like you said, after school and that's why so many of them violently quit, because they were just like, it's so much. It's like eating, if you ate spaghetti every meal for like a year, you'd be like, I don't want to eat more fucking spaghetti.
It's so much, because like, if you think about it from a high school perspective, like, high school stops at like 3, I think, was like the actual like bell time or whatever.
Yeah, like around 3, yeah.
Yeah, like around 3. So like,
I can't believe I almost actually you like, well, it's 2:45, dude. Like, I can't believe I'm sorry.
It's like around 3. I don't fucking remember. But so just imagine you're fucking 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and you go to school all day. Like, you get there at like 6 in the morning to do band. And then you go do school all day, and you get done around 3 or so, and then you still have to stay until about 6 p.m. like after school. Dude, like, it's too I mean, I get why they do it. It's a whole like especially because of how everything's set up here with like UIL and stuff like that. Like, UIL is
like
such a big fucking
yeah.
deal, and yeah, it's so draining and stressful, and like, there's so many fun parts about band. I've kind of like, in my adult years, I've realized how much shit I talk about band and stuff because of just how much I just hated it.
I was like
in
with
high
Quest,
school.
like, there were
But there's so many good things about band. Like, I made some really solid friendships, people that I still see today.
You learned how to read.
Yeah, I mean, I learned how to read music properly. I learned the basic theory. I
meant words.
I learned how to, I learned how to memorize things properly. That's that's actually one of the biggest things. Is like my memorization was so much better because of band, because you have to memorize full, like, an average marching show is like 10 minutes or whatever. Like, it's a pretty long deal. So you're having to remember the music and the steps, and it's like really good for memorization and like practicing that. So, and plus, like, there was so much, like, a lot of my goofiness I was able to get out in band, because like in school you could be kind of goofy and like, but there's like only so much time that you can do that. In band, there's so much downtime on top of those, like, work time. Like, you're in the bus all the time, driving from point A to point B, and there's like, dude, we used to have so much like just goofy shit. Like, one of the things that we used to do all the time on the band bus is we would just like roast the shit out of each other for like, because dude, like, when you are driving for like an hour plus and there's 30 kids on the bus, you gotta like pass the time. You gotta figure out what the fuck to do. So yeah, dude, we would tear each other to pieces on the band bus, but it was so fun because just like, it's one of those like stupid camaraderie things. But yeah, I mean, God, we went off super hard. I was talking about
the movie It.
The movie It. But yeah, I went and saw it on Thursday, and it was good. I mean, I started this by saying, I'm a Stephen King stan, so like, I know the lore of the books and stuff, and it diverts. It brings in a lot of stuff from the book that I was really appreciative of that they brought in.
Well, that was missing from the old movies,
from the 90s. Like, one of the main things is like one of the first things that happens in the book is, and fucking spoiler, but it's in the first like 10 minutes of the movie. So sorry.
No, fuck it. We're a spoiler account. We're a spoiler podcast.
But one of the things that happens in the book, one of the first things that happens in the book is there's this like there's a gay kid like that gets basically beat up, and then Pennywise comes and kills him afterwards. Like, he gets the shit kicked out of him and basically almost beat to death. But then Pennywise comes and gets him, and he's like one of the first like major kills of the book. And it's like a targeted attack. It's like they're beating him up for being gay or whatever. And so they actually put that in the movie, and I was really, really surprised that they kept it in there, because it's one of those things that like, it's really graphic. Like when you read the description of it, it's really graphic, and I think they captured they captured the point of that segment as well as the graphicness really well. I think in that first scene.
Did the movie overall? So one thing that I really like about what's the director? He did Midsummer and God that movie where the little girl gets her head knocked off.
Ari Aster.
Yeah, so
Hereditary.
Hereditary.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I like about them is that they are able to, without just relying solely on jump scares, they have just this creep factor. So whenever I don't know who directed the new It movies, but
Andy Muschietti.
So whenever I saw the first one, Andy Muschietti,
he is actually Italian.
He's like, I directed. Sorry, I'm gonna get canceled for this. So he fucking hold on, make sure that we're actually okay. Whenever I saw that first It movie, I was like, I was really stoked to see the creep factor. Like, there was a couple parts where it's and so did the new movie, other than jump scares and just gore and shock factor, did it have some of the creep factor that actually makes a good horror movie?
Well, that's one of the things that I will say negatively about the film. Overall, I liked the movie, but it did rely a lot on like jump scares, like goofy jump scares, and like. It did a lot of like the horror tropes that kind of get old after a while, and it's a fucking 3-hour long movie.
Oh my fuck.
Like, yeah, when you're watching it, it's like after a certain amount of jump scares, you're like, oh fuck, okay. But yeah, this one was a little bit less. I think the way that I described it was it's less Shining, more Stand By Me. This version was.
Okay, and I feel like the first one was a little bit more Shining. With the
so it's like if you were to split it down the middle, it is like half Stand By Me, half Shining, and
three.
The first one was a little bit more on the Shining side. The second one was a little bit because like all of the character development stuff, like all of the like end results of the character development happens in the second movie, obviously. So, a lot of the stuff that they had to get to character-wise is in this version, this movie. So yeah, it was a lot of like, there's a lot of touchy-feely stuff, but I mean, like overall, it was really good. And another thing is, I saw an interview where the director Andy Muschietti, I think I'm saying his last name right. I hope I am. But he was saying that he really wants to do a director's cut of the movie, and he said he wants it to be like at least 5 hours long, and I think that's so like that. I have a feeling that director's cut would be fucking awesome. Like,
I guess you gotta remember Mass Appeal,
yeah, and I mean, like, yeah, the 3-hour version is great for the audience at large, but I think. Because I can tell what he was talking about in some of the stuff. I think they underutilized Bill Skarsgård a lot. I think he could have been used a little bit better in like not what he was in. He was fucking fantastic in everything, that every scene that he was in. It was just like he was underutilized a little bit. Like he just wasn't in it quite enough.
I haven't seen it. I'm saying just hearing what you're saying.
But I mean, you can see what I'm talking about. And same thing with James McAvoy. I think they kind of underutilized him a lot, which I thought was. It was a weird way to go, but I think one of the things that they were trying to go for in this movie was like in the book, it's pretty clear that Bill is the main character. Bill's the stuttering one in the first movie. It's pretty clear in the book that he is the main character. Obviously, he's Stephen King is writing him as himself. When he grows up, he becomes like a horror writer. He basically becomes Stephen King. So Stephen King put himself into that character. So like he's more obviously the main character in the book and in the miniseries from the 90s. But this one, I think that they were trying to like kind of take that back a little bit and make it more like the group is the main character.
Was it too flashback heavy, as if it's still really focusing on the group?
No, I think because of how they set it up to where they did all the kid stuff first and then all the adult stuff second, there is a decent amount of flashbacks, but it's not too much because the book is literally like, the way the book is structured is legitimately like they get a phone call, they have a flashback of a chunk that would be in the first movie. And then it's like for each character. So like Bill gets his phone call and then he has a flashback of like Georgie dying and all that stuff. And then, Ben gets his phone call and he has the flashback of like Henry Bowers cutting into him and shit like that. So like that's how the book is structured. So the way that they did it in the movies, I thought they did well. I thought that it was well done. Dude, performance wise, Bill Hader fucking crushed it.
Dude, Bill Hader, and because he's a comedian, I think that it rarely gets acknowledged how much of a versatile, not just actor but talent he is. I mean, voice actor. I mean, everything that dude does is gold.
He's amazing. And the really great thing about this character for him was that the character is a comedian. When Richie, who is played by Finn Wolfhard in the first movie, when Richie grows up, he becomes a comedian. So like. The comedy aspect of it, obviously, it's Bill fucking Hader. He's hilarious. So, like, all the funny stuff that Bill Hader did was
translates well.
Very, very funny. But, dude, some of the, like, really emotional stuff, like, he did such a fucking good job. Like, especially towards the end of the movie. They put in this weird little thing towards the end of the movie that I don't know if I'll 100% agree with that direction of it. But like the way that Bill Hader played it, and he made it really, really believable and really good, and I think it was very solid.
The thing about Bill Hader is I watch a lot of his interviews, not just because I want to be like, oh, he made funny face, but like what I like so much about him is like you go see like an interview like on a late night TV show and say it's like fucking Alec Baldwin or something. You're like, he's being a character the whole time.
Yeah.
But Bill Hader, he strikes me. Obviously, I don't fucking know, but he strikes me as Aunt Libby, a guy who is like very much like he's like, yeah, so we did this, and then he varies naturally like transitionally funny, and I don't think it's like done on purpose. To me, it looks like he's just like well-rounded in comedy, but even just that type of stuff, or even him and Fred Armisen, dude. That guy, he's on such a. I feel like he would be one of those people that like you can't tell if they're joking or not when you're hanging out with them all the time. There was a video that he did. I don't know if I showed it to you. I'm not trying to transition out too quick, but there was a video that he did before it was an SNL where he was like not like bitch ass practical jokes. Like it was just stupid things he was doing. Like he would have someone filming and like he would go join like a tap dance class and just legitimately act serious the whole time. Or like he would go to medical conferences and just very confidently get up on stage and start giving a medical like
I've seen those videos.
And like so I mean that's those SNL classics like that. There's something in their brain, dude, that like makes them just be that way.
And I want to kind of clarify, because for people that have seen the movie, when I talk about the Richie thing at the end, I think they'll know what I'm talking about. And I want to clarify because it could be construed in a wrong way. My thing with the character of Richie is that I really, in the book, I really connected with him as a character because, so one of the reasons that I love it so much, the story and the book, is that what Stephen King did with the book, even though he was fucking coked out of his mind the whole time.
Was he really?
Yeah, absolutely. But one of the things that he really did well, I think, was like he focused. It's got all of like the scary stuff. It's got the movie monsters and stuff that he wanted to have in it and everything. But also like with the characters, he really does a really good job in the book of like making it to where the Pennywise attacks are really more about their genuine fear. And so like the genuine fear for most of the characters, like for Bill, it's that he didn't do right by his brother, which they focus on pretty well in this version. And that's his biggest fear. And for like Beverly, it's her like very dramatic abuse that she goes through, and for Ben, it's like the targeting attacks on him being fat and everything, and actually for Mike in the book, it's way more race related, but obviously it's the time period, climate. But for Richie, the thing about Richie that I really loved about his character in the book is that, and they don't go into it basically at all in the movies, is his whole thing is that they all kind of suffer from a form of abuse in one way or another, and that's kind of one of the things that connects them. Ben gets the abuse from the community at large for being fat, and same thing for Mike for being black. Beverly gets really, really badly abused by her dad. Bill, his form of abuse is more of his parents don't really know how to handle his brother's death, so like they kind of take it out on him in a lot of ways. With Eddie, it's his mom is really overbearing and turns him into a hypochondriac. But with Richie, and once again they don't really highlight it in the movie, Richie's character is actually his like abuse is parental neglect. Like his parents like don't pay him any attention. And so his whole character is based around the fact that he is just really desperate for attention. And that's why, he's trash mouth, and that's why he like makes all the jokes. That's why he's like the funny character, is because in the book he's searching for the attention that he doesn't receive at home. And in the way that they highlight it in the book is like really great, and there's some aspects to that translated over into film, but it's not expressly talked about. And I think that I would have, just me personally, I would have rather had more of a focus on Richie, because of what does happen at the end. It makes more sense of his reaction, and I'm not gonna give it all away or anything, but like his whole reaction at the end is based, when the way that they do it in the movie is based more on like a different kind of connection, as opposed to how they do it in the book. And I think that like it's not that I don't like what they did. It's that because I connect so much with Richie as a character, because of the whole neglect aspect and like wanting attention and stuff like that. I think that it does less for me what the direction that they went with it at the end of the movie.
There's a lot of like there's a running theme in most horror movies that involve a group of people, and then it includes the like the slashers and the cheesy ones. Is that like there's so much just trauma bonding, and that's so great for sequels, because it's like, of course they're still friends.
Yeah, and but I mean, overall, like I said, I really can't complain too much. My complaints are really, really stupid. Like the only like major complaint I'll really give is that they overdid some of the CGI. Like I think they really because in the first movie, the CGI that they do is, I don't want to say tasteful, because it's not like it's not tasteful in the second movie, but it's like less, it's like it's more about like Bill Skarsgård's face and stuff like that.
At least until the end, they kind of went,
And I think I think that they just like went a little bit too far with the CG in this movie. And I understand some of the reasonings for it, because there's just some really out there parts in the movie. But even just like, there's a sequence that I'm thinking of where Pennywise is under a set of bleachers and he's trying to lure a kid to him. And you can tell that they CG'd his face a little bit. Like, and it's just him. It's just him underneath the bleachers. But like, they CG'd his face because in the sequence of what's going on in the actual scene, it's all based around lighting, because this kid follows a firefly, which is, it's just imaginary firefly.
You might not believe your eyes.
But the kid's following the firefly, and there's this whole like thing with the play on the lighting, because he's like dipping back into the shadows and coming out of the shadows, and there's like a lot of lighting stuff. And so they did a little bit too much CG to make the lighting like really, really noticeable, so stuff like that. But I mean, like, on the flip side, there's this one scene where it's and spoilers for this scene, but whatever, go fuck yourself. It's Bill Skarsgård doesn't have makeup on. He's got like his normal face or whatever, but he's like slowly rubbing the skin away so that it shows like the white paint. And there's this part where he makes claws and cuts the design into his face.
Oh, like little curly.
Yeah, like the things that go down into a smile or whatever. I thought that was a really, really awesome way to use CG in that scene. I thought it was really cool how they did that. So, there's always a flip side to the negatives. Is like there's really great ways that they used it, and then they overused it at some points. So, but overall, I enjoyed it.
There was something that you brought up, as the fact that Stephen King was super coked out or whatever.
Yes, very.
So I've been rewatching Breaking Bad lately, and that reminded me of that part where they meet up with Tuco and he tries the product.
Yeah.
And then he like snorts it and he goes, tight. And so that's become this thing where it's like, I have, like the Blins and Andrew and them, I'll hang out with them, and like, we'll instead of like, okay, or like instead of being like, we decide or something, it'll turn to them and be like, okay, cool, tight. But yeah, what's your overall rating out of 5?
Out of 5. I mean, I feel like this is me being generous, but I'll give it like a 4.
Oh, dude, okay.
Yeah.
Then I'll see it. Then I'll watch it.
It's very worth the watch. Especially if you're a horror fan, or even if you're a Stephen King fan. If you've ever read the book, there's so much stuff from the book that they put into it that's really dope. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely worth watching, at least just for the performances alone. The performances were so solid. I mean, those fucking kids are amazing actors.
Was Finn Wolfhard in this one too?
Yeah. All the kids come back because there's flashback sequences.
Yeah.
So,
dude, the Finn Wolfhard has actually been running around with a lot of the like comedy crew that Casey Frey is around all the time.
mm-hmm.
And dude, there's some really fucking good like stupid YouTube videos that they don't like plug him as like Finn Wolfhard and ball. It's just he shows up. It's just fucking sorry. Side note.
Yeah, they're all really, really solid, and the adult actors work good. I think the kids outshine the adults. I will say that. I think that is true, except for maybe Bill Hader. But it's honestly the way that those kids, like how good those kids are. It's not that surprising, and it's not that the adult versions did bad. It's just that the kids were so fucking good.
Yeah. Well, I think too, someone who hasn't had many life experiences, it's a little bit more mind blowing when they have such talent at a young age versus a bunch of just obviously adult good actors. But there was,
dude, it fucking tripped me out. The one thing I will say. So if you guys don't know, do you remember the Old Spice commercials when the guy? It was like the Old Spice guy before Terry Crews was doing it, and he was like,
"Oh yeah."
He was like, there was like a one where he's sitting on the horse or whatever, and he's like, "Look back at me, look at your girl." So he plays the older version of Mike Hanlon, and there was a little bit getting used to like seeing him in like a normal role, because like at first I was like, I went into it and I was like, I'm not gonna think of him as the Old Spice guy, but the first couple sequences I'm like, God damn, he looks like he's selling me some fucking Old Spice.
I mean, dude, that's like if Flo from Progressive was like a lead role in a movie, you'd be like, this is a Flo movie. This is not.
Not to take away from his performance, he did a good job.
Sure, fucking killed it.
It's just hard to separate that. But no, it was good. I enjoyed it. I'm really excited for Dr. Sleep when it comes out, which is like next month or some shit like that. It's really soon. But I'll definitely go watch Dr. Sleep for sure, just because I'm on my Stephen King, like I'm taking in the Stephen King drug and enjoying it.
I think I'm sorry, by the way. I have been listening to every word you said, but I've been getting so distracted by how shiny my forehead is right now. I'm glistening, showered today.
Speaking of Dr. Sleep, you're shining. Dr. Sleep is a sequel to The Shining.
Yeah, I am excited for that. I saw the trailer. I got to admit, and this includes, by the way, you know how we love Star Wars, but like this includes Star Wars. I'm getting a little bit tired of the lack of the new classic. I feel like everything now, think about it, dude. Think about every major release that's come out in the past fucking 5-6 years. Even longer than that has been a reboot, a remake, a sequel, a prequel, and it's like I think that we're going to reach a point where in 20 years we don't have any more of those classic movies.
I think there's a good way to. Well, let's just talk Star Wars, right? Because we're big Star Wars fans. We're obviously going to go see Rise of Skywalker and fucking scream like little girls. But there are really good ways to build on and expand franchises, since that's the big thing now, especially with like the MCU, Star Wars and everything. I think they did a really good job in the side stories. Like Solo and Rogue One, I think were solid, building upon stories that already exist, but also being unique enough that it's not overbearing.
Dude, I mean, don't get me wrong, I like Rogue One even more than some of the main Star Wars films, but in general, though, at some point, Star Wars was a brand new thing that blew everyone's mind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, what's the most recent of that we've had,
Yeah, and I think part of the problem, too, is that, like, all this stuff exists because of fan service. They want you to come and spend your money and they want you to buy shit.
Yeah, I guess you got to consider mass.
But I
appeal.
think where the miss is that sometimes it's too much like corporateness into it, and you can tell when it's too much corporateness into it. And I think that's like one of the things is like with Star Wars, you know, you got to remember that before Star Wars, merchandising really wasn't much of a thing. You know, like George Euclid,
George Eulis.
George Euclid,
George Eucalyptus.
George Eucalyptus. George Lucas really like he kind of made merchandising, I think, and that was actually part of the like selling point, I think, to the studios, was that he was doing this whole merchandising thing.
I mean, you watched a documentary about that, right? Like, literally, like there were so many small companies that they pitched that, or big companies that they pitched that to, and they're like, "No, this is not going to work out." And then, like a small toy company ended up becoming like a fucking monopoly because of it.
Because, and that's the thing too, is like movies now are so much of a business. You gotta remember, Star Wars came out what 78, 79, I believe.
I think it was 78.
And like, you know, people always like look back at movies before that in like, you know, they're always like, oh, this is such a fantastic film and like blah blah blah. Those films do still exist. It's just that they're not really mass marketed because those turn into indie films now.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're right. Dude, like there's a film that I feel like would have been that, and I haven't seen it yet. I really want to see it, but now it's going to be more of an indie marketing film, like that Honey Boy movie with Shia LaBeouf. Like, dude, that movie looks so fucking good, and I can tell that it's just going to kind of go down in indie movie history. And I feel like maybe we talked about it a little bit earlier, but I think maybe one of the transitional movies, like one of the last movies that kind of made it through that like closing portal into like a mainstream cult classic, was Napoleon Dynamite. Because, dude, literally, when I saw Napoleon Dynamite, my dad took me to go see it in 2004, and we had to find a movie, like the closest movie theater I think that was showing it was like Hewlin, and it was one of those things, it was like an indie movie that got a few showings here and there, and it ended up becoming just this massive, like, do you remember Napoleon Dynamite took over the world for like a year?
Oh, yeah.
And so I think it's one of those things where that's kind of, maybe kind of like how, you know, online videos are becoming the new cable or the new media. I think that maybe that's just how it is. Maybe things are not classic in the same way that they once were. But what's cool about, not to go on this fucking tangent that you hear from everybody all the time, but I think it's really cool to be a part of this half and half world where we got to be we grew up in the old school, we were young enough to transition to the new school, and then we get to see how everything is different. Like, dude, I was saying, like, I literally remember even being a teenager and the world was such a different fucking place. It was still old school, you know.
It's very strange. But I mean, and another thing to consider too is that like new classics are still being made. You know, it's not.
Oh, like, dude, made in Manhattan, absolutely. Jersey Girl, dude, are you fucking kidding me?
Well, let's just take, dude, Hereditary. Hereditary fucking blew up. You know, Ari Aster is not that well known of a director before Hereditary came out, and Hereditary is massive. It's such a fucking good movie, and it got huge. So like that level of and dude, even watching the trailers before it. They're like, dude, The Lighthouse. I think Jimmy Green and I talked about it a little bit, but dude, that movie looks fucking awesome.
I haven't seen the trailer for that yet, but I'm
dude, it looks so good. It's like like the synopsis or whatever is like it's Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson, and it's like a period piece kind of. It's like early 1900s or late 1800s, I think, and they're like watching a lighthouse together. And it's basically like a weird, like, cabin fever type of.
Oh, dude, if William Dafoe's in it, you know it's going to be nice and creepy.
Dude, it looks fucking awesome. It's in black and white. It looks amazing. I'm so excited to see it. So, I mean, there's still stuff to get excited about. And even the stuff that, like, you know, the reboots and the franchise expansions and stuff like that. You know, I made this big tangent on the episode where I was talking about Star Wars that, like, don't not be excited for it, you know, because there's so much stuff coming out that it could be great. You know, The Mandalorian looks fucking awesome. Like,
well, and I guess it does bring new fans to an old franchise, and I think that's a good thing. Because I mean, once you open that up, like if you go see The Force Awakens and that's your first Star Wars movie and you're fucking 10 years old, that could lead to a lifelong deep dive. So I'm not about, like, I'm talking about, like, I mean, there is like franchise classics like that, but I think whenever there's like, dude, there's some things, and I'm trying to think of a specific example, but like. Certain things that it's just like, I think with like Swamp Thing, like, or whatever, nobody ever asked for a reboot of that, and I feel like it's just at a point that we're reaching, and you cannot disagree that has become so much more prevalent in modern day. Whereas, like, I feel like, dude, like, remember when the shitty, like, the Edward Norton Hulk movie came out when we were kids, and dude, it was all over the place because, like, oh my god, a Hulk reboot,
or the Eric Bana one was first.
Oh, sorry, hold on,
The Eric Bana.
Was Edward Norton ever?
Yeah, Edward Norton was the first CG Hulk movie was the Ang Lee.
That's what I'm talking about.
Eric Bana movie, and then it was Edward Norton.
Edward Norton was the better one.
Yeah, the 05 was Eric Bana, and the 08 was Edward Norton.
Edward Norton was the better one, but when the first one came out, I remember like it was such a big deal because it was like, oh my god, it's a reboot of something old, and now it's just like everything that comes out, like dude, I feel like I don't know, man,
I think companies are going to catch on to that eventually, though, and I think they already are starting to with like, especially, dude, like horror movies are like at the top of their game right now, in my opinion.
Dude, both Jordan Peele movies are fucking awesome.
I genuinely believe that like horror is the genre of the current times. I think horror, like it's they're doing a really good combination of like bringing back stuff like It and Scary Stories and stuff like that, but also these new, just really fucking awesome movies, like really, really awesome.
Have you seen Midsommar yet?
No,
I want to see it so bad.
I want to watch it so bad.
I like a movie like the reason I like Hereditary so much is I like a movie that makes me feel so like I feel like I have to take a shower after watching it. Just like
yeah. Well, and so that's another thing too is like these young directors in horror or younger directors, like the guy who's doing The Lighthouse, he did The Witch beforehand, and I really like The Witch. And it's the same thing with Ari Aster. You know, he did Midsommar. I really want to see it, and he did Hereditary, which I fucking love. So yeah, I mean, I think horror's like it's. Yeah, very much killing it at this period, and this is like the good time for it. And I think that like, I don't want to be this guy, but I believe the era of blockbusters is over. Like the era of unique new blockbusters is over.
I think I've thought about this, and I think it's because of accessibility. Sorry, I'm getting I think that things are so just kind of how like the era of like the rock star is over with because there's less pay to play. You know, there's less pay to access. There's more making things that were used to be just like a fucking godlike massive thing, and making them more of a like everybody gets a smaller, more backstage pass version of that.
Yeah.
So I think that does take away, like if it was to go back to I'll call it analog times. Like say there's a movie that gets hyped up for like 6 months, you know it's not going to come out on video for another year after that, and then it was, or like even going to see a concert, you couldn't watch a concert on YouTube, and then it's just. Blockbusters, you know, rock stars, anything like that. I think that the accessibility has really, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's just me being an old head, being like, oh, I miss that. But I think it's changed. We grew up seeing the world in a certain way, and this is when I talk about the transitional thing.
Yeah.
Like blockbusters might still exist in their own way, you know, but it's a different. Economic system even is completely different.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and that's the only thing that I'll say too, especially for movies, is all I really hope out of movies in the future is I don't really care about, you know, like if they put $50 million into the next fucking Jurassic Park or whatever. Like that's not really what I'm looking for. I just want them to put enough money into like maybe some smaller movies, maybe some stuff, dude, because you got to think about it even too with like just filmmaking styles in general. You can basically remake movies like The Godfather at home now, just with like how editing and like camera and stuff, and like
fan films are insane now.
Yeah, it's like you can do a lot of that stuff yourself. So like the big blockbuster stuff obviously is going to be the big major like CGI craziness that you can't do at home. But I just think that if somebody, you know, studios or whoever is able to put just enough money into, you know, and I'm not saying like every fucking small director who's coming up or whatever, but like, you know, just a few people, like take a chance on a script, you know, take a chance. Like if you read a script, and of course I'm talking to fucking Hollywood elite like they're ever going to fucking hear this, but like if you read a script and you like it, you know what I'm saying? Like just take the fucking risk on it, you know, stop. What I want out of major studios right now is to stop worrying about the ROI on it. At least for a few movies. It doesn't have to be every fucking movie. You know, you can release all your big blockbusters. It's going to make billions of dollars. But every once in a while, take a risk. You know, take a risk. Put a little bit more marketing money behind, you know, some movies that are not quite going to be the big major money makers. Because I think that's what's going to keep, at least from my perspective, that would be what would keep an audience interested in your brand and in your studio, you know.
Well, and maybe start marketing these small movies more than 2 weeks ahead of time. Even just like you don't even have
Well,
to.
that's what I mean. Yeah,
Well,
putting
yeah,
a little bit of extra money in on that side of things, because you know, like they'll give out $5 million or whatever to make those movies, and that's more than enough. But the marketing budget is like non-existent.
and that's the thing. And you can make a small movie into a huge movie with that. But it's like, dude, if I find out about a movie and it'll be comes like the first trailer's like it comes out next month, you know, it's like it's not going to have the same hype train on it. And I get that not everyone's going to care about the same stuff, and marketing is fucking expensive or whatever. But
Yes, it is.
it just makes so much more sense to like move that money around. But I guess money's not infinite. I get it, but I just like it's just like, dude, can you imagine spending millions of dollars on a movie and then waiting until a week and a half before to really drop that trailer? You know,
Yeah,
like, who fucking cares? I'll just wait till the movie comes out.
yeah, and you know, I'm hoping that with like when the streaming war gets figured out, like when the whole streaming service war, you know, when Disney launches Disney Plus and either it fucks up or it does well, or
And we all have
whatever.
cable again, you know.
And they all figure that stuff out. I hope that they utilize those platforms more, you know, especially Disney, dude. Like Disney, 1000%. I'm a Disney stan. I'll always fucking stand by Disney because like so much of my childhood and so much of what I love is built in Disney. But I think Disney is really the main studio that I'm talking to when I refer to these things, because especially if you have Disney Plus, if you can push these smaller things, if you can push the script that you want to take a risk on and stuff on a safer place to do it, you know, your streaming platform is going to bring in money regardless. Like you don't have to worry about the income because it exists. A monthly fucking, you know, it's a monthly fee that you're getting every single month from us.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I'm hoping for, and I've heard that said.
A new era royalties.
Yeah, and I think that if once again we're stuck right now in this weird fucking like everybody wants to start their own streaming service because, you know, Netflix took off so bad and everything. But once all that shit gets figured out, I'm hoping that could be where these really, really good, solid, not quite as blockbustery movies can start coming from.
Yeah, and I think on a side note, I need to talk into the top of this mic. So on a side note, I think it's funny how things are cyclical and how history repeats itself, because in a way, you had cable, who's kind of a conglomerate of all these networks and all these, you know, licenses and everything, and then we come up in an era where, okay, Netflix comes out, okay, that's different. Oh, now they have original content, and you know, aside from curating from other networks, and and then after that, all these other networks, they go off and they split off to do their own thing that are eventually all going to be separate subscription services. So you're paying exactly what you paid for cable, and now you have these networks that are still the same networks with their own original shows, and it's funny out of being like, oh, that's a good idea that already happened.
Oh, I 1000%, by the way, believe that they're going to re-intertwine. I think what's going to happen is we're going to have all these split ups, and they're going to do stuff like Hulu and Disney Plus. There's packages that you can get where you get Hulu with Disney Plus, and I think that's what it's going to be in the future.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Or like, there's going to be partnerships and licenses, and Netflix Netflix might get fucked at some point.
I don't think so. I think if anything, Netflix, if they play it right and if they're smart about it, they're going to, like I said, they're going to let the fucking streaming war happen because it's going to happen.
It's like good, yes.
Yeah, there's no dodging the fucking streaming war at all. But once it dies down a little bit and you know, they realize that having all this revenue split up is not conducive, because I don't think it is. I really don't believe that it's going to work out the way that they think it's going to work out.
So also too, I think that, and I'm sure, I don't know how much is considered, but there's high up execs that are like, yeah, they'll pay for our streaming service because they're paying $10 a month for 10 other streaming services. No, dude, I barely afforded Netflix, and I paid for that alone for years.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I'm not going to, like, I will stop watching a show if it's like, oh, I can't watch fucking, Friends, because I have to go, no, I'm not going to do that, you know?
Also fucking pirating. I'm sorry. Like, it's so easy. Like, I'm not saying that
hypothetically,
I don't participate in these horrible actions, but you know, that's another thing to consider, is that with these streaming services and everything, it's so easy to fucking pirate. So there you have the combination of like pirating, and then, you know, people sharing accounts and splitting up the revenue, because not everybody is going to be able to afford. The thing with Netflix is everybody's able to afford $8 a month, but when it's $8 a month for Netflix, 10 for Disney Plus, 10 for Hulu, like, it's going to be less and less and less. So I think once they figure that out, then they're going to start coming back together, and there's probably going to be about 4 or 5 like
major networks,
major ones.
You know, Fox and Disney are still going to be killing it or whatever. But.
Yeah, and I think Disney Plus has the potential to be like that, like because Disney owns so much fucking shit. Disney owns like ABC and ESPN and all this other bullshit.
The fucking infinity gauntlet of
So like Disney can be one of the major players because Disney's the major player in everything.
Oh, and they also print money, you know.
And Amazon's going to be a major player because Amazon is a major player in everything. And I think Netflix can hang on as a major player if they ride the wave of the war properly, because I think what needs to happen eventually, at least from the Netflix side of things, and obviously I'm a fucking 26-year-old kid from fucking Texas. What the fuck do I know?
From Philadelphia.
Yeah, Philadelphia.
Is that a good Philly accent?
But I think what Netflix needs to do is ride the wave, let the revenue stop, and dude, honestly, I would partner with Amazon, but I'm not going to tell you what to do because I'm not your fucking father. But I think that would be a good combination is Netflix, and like if you can plan it out right to where it's a partnership and them not purchasing Netflix, I think that would make a really good service. Whatever combination service that would happen from Netflix and Amazon coming together would be really great because Disney can have the Disney stuff, Netflix and Amazon can have basically everything else. And, maybe there's 1 or 2 other ones because, fucking Ted Turner is greedy or whatever.
Wait, Disney owns Fox now. I actually put them in 2 separate categories, right? Disney does own Fox, don't they? Or
Dude, I can't keep up. I
think they bought Marvel from...
Yeah, they bought out a section of Fox. I think they didn't buy out Fox entirely, but they might have bought out like Searchlight or something like that. I can't remember what it was specifically. But I think if they do it smart, and they play the waiting game and they let the trends and the audiences move the way that they probably will move, then I think at the end of everything it's going to work out well for the audience because we'll only have like 3 or 4, and then it's going to work out well for the companies because they can just conglomerate with these other guys and they could still make their big bucks, and I think that's one thing that they're not gonna catch on to until later on is that
it's gonna be trial and error. They're gonna see what people are having to be willing to pay for.
Yeah, because you gotta think like if you're paying $8 for Netflix now and you're paying $14 or whatever for Amazon, if you combine those and charge $20, I don't see that being something that would not happen. I could still see people paying $20 a month for the combination of Netflix and Amazon.
Dude, when you talk about pirating, okay, so you know how they just announced the rematch between Logan Paul and KSI or whatever?
Yeah.
So I was watching Logan Paul went on Theo Von's podcast, and I was watching this past weekend, and I'm going to move this a little bit, and he said that because of pirating, he lost like 2/3 of his revenue.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But it's like also, I mean, it's, if you make something accessible, people will pay for it. Great example, I hypothetically have not pirated any music in 7 years because I've had Spotify or Apple Music, because I'm like, I can have it all and I don't have to download all this shit and I can just stream it. I'll just pay $10.
Don't have to give my computer fucking AIDS anymore with LimeWire.
Dude, listen, man. Listen, you don't have to give your computer AIDS. Ever, you didn't have to back in the day because we are a bear share family. We do not. No, dude. Listen, much like fuck CBS, we're an Eckerd's family. Hashtag Eckerd's family. And much like that, fuck you, LimeWire. Fuck you, Kazaa. Are you fucking kidding me? We are a bear share family. And if I'm gonna give my computer fucking AIDS through a virus because I was downloading NSYNC's greatest hits, I'm using bear share. Dude, I fucked up some of my parents' computers with bear share. Hypothetically.
Never actually participated.
My parents one time bought a brand new netbook or whatever, just like a $300 laptop, and I immediately put bear share on it, and I immediately fried it. But okay, I know that we're getting close to an hour here, right?
Yeah.
But I want to not to make a hard transition, but I wanted to talk to you about one thing because it relates to what I'm doing now. And, we talked about my pepper shit. Even on Jimmy Green's podcast, we talk about like a pathetic pepper party or whatever.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get your thoughts on, in general, crowdfunding. And so today, I guess we filmed, for me, I want to try to go legit with this, and I want to try to do investor free. We filmed a video about crowdfunding my company. and of course things would be given back. But also, I can tell you, there's been a thought like Ian from iDubbbz himself has that thing called called
iDubbbz.
Kickstarter crap,
Yeah.
and it's just like he talks about just shitty crowdfunding things, and if the item sucked or whatever, and it's like there's been so many times I've seen somebody like crowdfund like I need a new bicycle, and I'm just like fuck you, but like. I'm wondering, like, I'm a little bit conflicted on it because I feel very much like I don't like asking people for things, or I don't like not being able to do things myself. And I'm wondering how that's going to look, how it's going to impact the future of a potential company, what kind of trail of shit that's going to follow it. Like, how do you feel about crowdfunding? Because I'm kind of on both sides right now a little bit. Like I'm a little bit kind of flipping myself off or even entertaining the thought.
Yeah. So, and that's one thing. We're working on a bunch of other stuff, and the crowdfunding thing is one thing that we're working on together a little bit.
And this includes Patreon.
Yeah.
By the way.
Yeah. So like, I'm not against crowdfunding at all because I feel like it's a good way to not fall into the investor trap, which
isn't always I wasn't trying to say that the investor is always a trap, because a lot of times investors will be like, here's your money, creative control, go for it. And I've had some that talk to me that you can do anything you want.
Yeah.
But sorry, I just wanted to.
I mean, it's naive to think that there's not, the investor game is not sketchy, and I think that the way that, and especially for a brand like Pepper Pat, Pepper Pat, I feel like as a brand should be like a by the people for the people type of thing. And I think that if your brand
just like giving a speech at the Washington Monument,
yeah.
like
but I mean seriously though, like it's one of those things that like the way that I think that the Pepper Pat stuff is going to come across is we need help getting started so that you guys can in turn participate in it. It's not like I'm just going to take your money and start the company and fuck you. It's like, help out. Let's get this shit off the ground. And then in turn, you're going to be a part of it. In our personalities, Pat's personality is goofy, like, want to have fun with it and like incorporate stupid stuff. So even like just like,
and this isn't just my business, by the way.
Right. But even like if we were to start a Patreon, like, which we may start a Patreon at one point, who knows? I feel like the stuff that we would do would be like more personable. Like even if we had a big audience, I would want to make it more personable, like to the point where like, just stupid stuff like I'll shout, I'll fucking say hi. I'll like if we were to have actual fans or whatever, and like somebody wanted like, I don't fucking know, because our Patreon system would probably be stupid as shit because it would all be jokes anyway. But like, I would be very cool with like putting in a little bit of effort to like say hi somewhere, shout out your Twitter, fucking give you
plug a product or something,
give you a little like a fuckboy video. I'll send you that. Fuck, dude.
Okay, so here's the way I look at it. I think that I get really grossed out. Like I see a lot of people all over Twitter. People will be like, if anybody wants to cash at me, here's my like literally asking for money for nothing. And the way we talked about, I think it was the first episode I came on here. We talk a lot about justification and personal brand, and those are two things that I think about a lot, and I think about long-term perception. The way that I'm justifying this right now is that I see it as a upfront business loan where the only strings attached is not equity, but I'm promising you something in return depending on your level. So I feel like that's how I can say like you're still buying something, but like, and this is not just a plug for my thing. It's something that like for a long time that I've gone back and forth. We are going to
plug the shit out of it though in the future. So. We
could literally bleep out everything I'm doing here, and my point would still stand. It's that like I get conflicted about it because I hate not that I wouldn't give to charity is what, but like I hate being asked for money for no reason from anybody.
I think kind of the short answer to like, is crowdfunding okay or anything like that is, yeah, if you put effort behind it.
Or
I think that's all it is.
I think if you're offering something in return, crowdfunding a movie you're making here, like Star Wars Theory or something, like, okay, here's your movie, there's your product. Crowdfunding a product or a company. Okay. Well,
Star Wars Theory is a great example because you can tell that he puts in the effort.
He cares about it. So like, dude, that movie was his entire fucking life.
Yeah, and he genuinely gives a shit. And I think that's like what needs to come across when you do stuff like that. Like once again, for us, like, I'm not trying to toot my own horn or anything, but like this whole podcasting video shit has been a learning process, and like I feel like I've started to kind of catch my stride on my editing style, and like I'm getting there, and I feel like the effort is coming across. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that both of us are getting better at, and just even off camera chat. Like I feel like both of us are getting a little bit better about feeling comfortable doing this, and we've actually like the feedback y'all has been really great. And there's even tiny milestones like 20 subscribers on YouTube. That's like 20 people had to press that button. You know what I mean? And like that's not a big deal. It's so small, but in general, like we don't get anything out of this at all. You know what I mean? It's
like that stuff is meaningful to us too.
Yeah.
Like if you guys listen, if you guys watch, if you're sub to anything, like even if you just like every once in a while listen to an episode or whatever, that is meaningful to us because this is all like a passion project for us, and like getting any type of reaction is dope. It's more than what we deserve, I think.
Every morning that we do this, I mean, it's usually every Saturday morning if we can. Like I make about a 40-minute drive, and then we meet up, we do this, and then he ends up spending days editing it before it goes live, and then we just keep doing that cycle. And I feel like we're getting a little bit better. We're getting more feedback. We're getting really good guests, and I feel like it is cool. Like for something that like you said, if you really care about it, I feel like it can be justified, but to me, it can only be justified if there is some form of you're giving me money. That's an exchange. There's going to be something coming back. I cannot stand you have 10,000 followers on Twitter and you're like, it's my birthday. Here's my fucking Venmo. That shit makes me so mad. Or dude, I saw something where.
Now that you say that, I'm definitely doing that on my birthday.
Well, there was someone that said, and this is not charity. This is different from charity, but like there was someone I saw one time that was like, moving into a new apartment today. If anybody wants to donate, here's my thing. And it's like, no, dude, that it is not anyone's job to help you fucking move just for the fuck of it. Like, do not just. That stuff makes me so mad. And then so for me to sit there and just be like on my phone, like being upset, just being like, I can't fucking believe this. And then I'm here to be like, hey guys, do you want to contribute to my shit? I feel a little bit slimy about it, but
it's so different though. Like I said, like putting in the effort behind what you're asking for, and actually having something, like actually physically having something to say for it, especially with the pepper pat thing, because not a whole lot of people have been able to try your fucking sauces, but I fucking love your sauces, and I love your fucking jam and all that type of shit that you made for me in the past.
Dude, the big deal is like, and I try to describe this to somebody like, the reason that I can't get stuff out fast, the reason that I can't have things for everybody to try, the reason I don't have a ton of product is 100% capital, because I'm a sole proprietor, or will be, of this whole thing, and it is so much work, and that's why I really just, in that case specifically, I feel like it makes sense, and I feel like it's gonna. If I try, I mean, I'll be glad to say that I tried it. But if I do, and it, I get like $200 that I have to give back, and it like falls flat on his face, I'll be glad that I tried. But I'm just like, dude, I shouldn't have even
fuck it. Yeah, like I think you should, like as a friend, like fuck. This is still the podcast, but fuck the podcast, fuck everything else. I think as a friend, you should give it a shot because it is something that you give a shit about. Like. It's something that is good. Like you're fucking good at making sauces. You give a shit about like.
Dude, how weird is it to be? I feel like such a meme to be like so into peppers. That's like, dude, if you were like into oranges, if you're like, dude,
you're talking to somebody who fucking gets into Star Wars lore. Like
this is normal though. Like I feel,
but it's fucking dumb as shit. And there's no fucking byproduct of that. It's just like I fucking like Star Wars. Woo.
I don't know, man. Like I'm as we talked about, kind of the mental gymnastics of being us. I sometimes will be like, some days I'll be like, what, you doing some really cool shit, man, and then some other days I'll be like, you're a fucking meme, dude. And so it's weird, but whatever. Edwin, this was kind of nice because it's been a minute since we just like calmly talked about something. We didn't have a guest, and we were just fucking like joke bullshitting. We actually kind of talked a little bit today, so that was cool. But.
Yeah, we had an actual genuine conversation. Well, I hope you guys liked it if you're listening or watching.
This one's for the weebs, dude.
Yeah, this one's for the weebs. This one's for the true APP stans. But thanks you guys for checking it out this week. Just a heads up for if you guys keep up with us next week, we will not be releasing an episode. We're both going to be out of town, so nothing next week. But we have a bunch of like projects and stuff that we're working on. So like, just keep an eye out for stuff. It's going to start coming out periodically, and we'll be back the following week. With the normal podcast schedule. But thanks you guys for checking out this episode. You can follow us on Twitter at Podpathetic. We're on Facebook, Apathetic Podcast. If you want to watch our goofy edits, we're on YouTube at Apathetic Podcast. Like, share, subscribe, do all that bullshit.
And there's a couple Twitter accounts. First of all, there's at Scented Gladbag. That's me. This whole thing, at Scented Gladbag. And this whole podcast exists as, God damn it. And as well as, the podcast, anything, Pepper Pat, anything. It all exists to get followers on Twitter. And then there's another Twitter account I want you to follow called Subway Responds. It's a satire account where I find people who have tweeted about Subway and I plug fake Subway products as a response. But I'll cuss a little bit. I'll be like, oh, you should try the new fucking salami slammer, or just some stupid shit. Pastrami slammer is what I said.
Pastrami slammer.
And so follow Subway Response, follow at Scented Gladbag, follow Podpathetic, and 90 fucking 90.
90.